For decades, the name Maurice Gibb was spoken with admiration, a man whose quiet genius helped define the sound of an entire generation. But behind the harmony, there was pain, mystery, and a final night that no one in his family will ever forget. In recent years, shocking revelations have begun to surface. Documents, confessions, and leaks that have rewritten what we thought we knew about his final hours. What really happened inside Mount Sinai Medical Center in 2003 has now become one of the most disturbing unanswered questions in music history. The night everything went wrong. On the evening of January 9, 2003, Maurice Gibb was at home in Miami Beach, Florida, when he began to feel a sharp pain tearing through his abdomen. At first, he believed it was just a minor stomach problem, something that would pass. But within an hour, his skin turned pale, his breathing slowed, and he collapsed to the floor. His wife, Yvonne Gibb, immediately called for help, her voice trembling as she tried to keep him conscious until the ambulance arrived. Paramedics rushed Maurice to Mount Sinai Medical Center, unaware that every minute lost would become a matter of life and death. Doctors initially suspected appendicitis, a common condition that seemed to match his symptoms. But it wasn't appendicitis. It was something far deadlier, volvulus, a twisted section of the intestine that cuts off blood flow and causes rapid internal damage. Time was critical. Yet, according to later reports, Maurice was left waiting in a hallway for more than 2 hours before any surgical decision was made. When the call for emergency surgery finally came, another error occurred. The resuscitation equipment needed for VIP patients was stored on the 8th floor, far from the operating room. Medical staff wasted 10 crucial minutes retrieving it. In that window of time, Maurice went into cardiac arrest, his first. Though doctors managed to revive him, oxygen deprivation had already caused severe brain injury. In surgery, a twisted and necrotic section of Maurice's intestine was removed. For a brief moment, the family was told he was critical but stable. But the truth was far worse. His body had suffered too much trauma. On January 12, 2003, at 1:45 a.m., Maurice Gibb, one-third of the legendary Bee Gees, was pronounced dead at just 53 years old. His death certificate listed cardiac failure due to complications from intestinal volvulus, but his brothers Barry and Robin Gibb immediately sensed something deeper was wrong. He walked into that hospital talking, Barry later said. 3 days later, we lost him. That's unacceptable. The hidden errors and the silent settlement. In the days that followed Maurice Gibb's death, grief turned into disbelief. The Gibb family, still reeling from the shock, began to question the chain of events that had unfolded at Mount Sinai Medical Center. Nothing seemed to make sense. How could a healthy man who had walked into the hospital talking and conscious die just 3 days later from a treatable condition? The brothers demanded answers. An internal review was quietly launched, but what the family discovered behind closed doors was disturbing. Records showed that 2 early warnings about a possible intestinal twist were dismissed by attending physicians, who insisted on waiting for more tests before performing surgery. Nurses later admitted that Maurice's condition deteriorated rapidly during this delay, with his pulse weakening and his skin turning blue. One nurse, identified in leaked documents years later, resigned only weeks after the incident, a decision that would fuel suspicion for decades. The Gibb family was devastated and angry. Robin Gibb, in an interview with BBC News, called it deadly carelessness, while Barry described it as a stain on the healthcare system that cannot be erased. Yet despite their outrage, the family never pursued a public lawsuit. That decision, according to insiders, came from Yvonne Gibb, Maurice's widow. She was reportedly pressured into accepting a confidential settlement to avoid a lengthy legal battle that could drag the family's name into the tabloids. The settlement required complete silence. No interviews, no statements, no disclosure of hospital records. In exchange, Mount Sinai paid an undisclosed amount to close the case permanently. But silence only deepened suspicion. Fans of the Bee Gees, who had worshipped Maurice as the quiet genius of the trio, began to question why the case vanished so abruptly. Rumors spread across fan clubs and online forums. Some claimed the hospital had mishandled VIP protocol, placing prestige above urgency. Others believed that Maurice's family had been forced to choose between justice and privacy. For years, the truth remained buried. But in 2024, more than 2 decades after his death, a leak changed everything. A cache of internal Mount Sinai emails and reports surfaced online, revealing ignored warnings, misplaced equipment, and systemic failures in the hospital's treatment of high-profile patients. It was the spark that reignited a mystery once thought to be closed forever. The Gibb family curse and genetic fears. As the leaked 2024 documents circulated, they reopened not just medical debates, but something darker. Fans began whispering about what they called the Gibb family curse. For the first time, the eerie coincidences between the brothers' deaths came under new scrutiny. Both Maurice and his twin Robin Gibb had died from intestinal complications, less than a decade apart. Robin, who passed away in 2012, succumbed to colorectal cancer after years of battling stomach issues. To fans, the similarities were too precise to ignore. A former family physician, speaking anonymously in an online post later removed, claimed that the Gibb brothers might have shared a genetic predisposition to digestive disorders. The theory suggested that an inherited weakness in the intestinal wall made both twins vulnerable to twisting or blockage, conditions that, left untreated, could easily turn fatal. Yet, according to that same source, no genetic tests were ever performed, allegedly out of fear that such information might tarnish the Bee Gees' public image. When journalists approached Barry Gibb in 2025 for comment, he did not confirm nor deny the claim. He simply said, "There are things about Maurice's death that the world deserves to know, but I can't speak about them." His vague response only deepened public suspicion. Was Barry bound by legal agreements, or was he protecting something the family still couldn't face? Social media turned the tragedy into a global investigation. Hashtags like #JusticeForMaurice and #TheGibb trended for weeks. Fans dissected every line of leaked documents, cross-referencing timestamps and medical logs. Even independent doctors began weighing in, stating that volvulus, though dangerous, is often survivable if treated promptly. For them, Maurice's death was a textbook case of systemic failure, not inevitability. At the same time, other theories spread, some bordering on superstition. Old interviews resurfaced in which Barbara Gibb, the brothers' mother, spoke of her fear of losing my twins the same way. In hindsight, her words felt prophetic. Whether it was genetics, fate, or negligence, the result was the same. 2 brothers, connected by blood and music, gone from eerily similar conditions. For Barry, it wasn't just tragedy, it was survivor's guilt. He had buried all 3 of his younger brothers, Andy in 1988, Maurice in 2003, and Robin in 2012. Alone now in his late 70s, Barry would later admit, "I hear them every day, in the music, in the silence. It's as if they never left the silent genius Maurice's life behind the spotlight." Long before the hospital tragedy, Maurice Gibb had already endured a lifetime of emotional struggle. Born on December 22, 1949 in Douglas, Isle of Man, he was the younger twin of Robin Gibb by just 35 minutes. Their childhood was shaped by hardship, a cramped 1-bedroom flat, parents scraping by, and a dream of escape carried only by music. When the family emigrated to Australia in 1958, it wasn't glamour they found, but poverty. They lived in Crib Island, a rough district near Brisbane, where barefoot children played beside rusting fences and music became their only refuge. Even then, Maurice stood out. While Barry and Robin sang lead, he was the one who could make instruments speak: guitar, bass, organ. He mastered them all before the age of 10. Neighbors recalled the little boy who could pick up anything with strings and make it sing within minutes. Yet when the Bee Gees rose to global fame, Maurice was often the invisible force behind the sound, the one arranging harmonies, crafting bass lines, and refining rhythms that defined an era. His technical brilliance shaped every Bee Gees classic, from Stayin' Alive to Night Fever, yet the world mostly saw Barry's face and Robin's falsetto. Reporters rarely addressed him in interviews. The spotlight bypassed him completely. This quiet erasure left a wound he never fully healed. As fame grew in the 1970s, so did the pressure, and Maurice sought comfort in alcohol. What began as a drink to calm nerves turned into dependency. Friends later recalled nights when he'd vanish from recording sessions, drowning silence in whiskey. His personal life reflected the chaos of fame. In 1969, he married singer Lulu, forming what tabloids called Britain's golden couple. But behind the smiles, there was distance, fueled by his drinking and her relentless schedule. The marriage collapsed after 4 years, leaving Maurice broken. "When he was sober, he was wonderful," Lulu once said, but alcohol turned him into someone else. It was his second wife, Yvonne Spenceley, whom he married in 1975, who finally helped him confront his demons. With her and their children, Adam and Samantha, he began rebuilding his life. But even after achieving sobriety in the 1990s, years of self-abuse had left invisible scars on his heart, his liver, and perhaps, as fate would later prove, his intestines. The collapse, the aftermath, and the legacy that refuses to die. When the news of Maurice Gibb's death broke on January 12, 2003, the world froze in disbelief. Radio stations played "How Deep Is Your Love" on repeat, and fans across continents lit candles outside recording studios. For millions, Maurice had been the heartbeat of the Bee Gees, the quiet craftsman who held the sound together while his brothers took the spotlight. But for the Gibb family, the loss was unbearable. Inside the hospital, Yvonne, Adam, and Samantha had been by his bedside when his heart stopped for the final time. "He looked peaceful," one family friend said, but the silence in that room was devastating. His twin brother Robin, unable to comprehend what had happened, told Mojo magazine later that year, "We were kids together. We spent our whole lives with each other because of our music. I can't accept that he's dead. I just imagine he's alive somewhere else." A private funeral was held in Miami Beach, attended by about 200 close friends and family members, including Michael Jackson, Harry Wayne Casey, and Lulu, his former wife. The service was filled with tears and songs, not performed, but remembered. Barry, standing by the casket, said only, "We can't perform as the Bee Gees anymore." It was the three voices together that made the sound. After his passing, the Bee Gees effectively disbanded. Barry tried to continue writing, and Robin released solo material, but the chemistry was gone. The group that had sold over 200 million records and defined the sound of the 1970s disco era was no more. Still, Maurice's fingerprints remained on everything they had created, from the layered harmonies of Night Fever to the intricate bass line of Stayin' Alive. His death also triggered long-term reflections about the pressures of fame and the unseen toll it takes. In the years that followed, medical experts cited his case as a tragedy of delay and misdiagnosis, a reminder of how even the most advanced systems can fail under pressure. But for those who knew him, Maurice's story was less about the mistakes that ended his life, and more about the brilliance that defined it. By the time the Bee Gees were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997, Maurice had already cemented his legacy as one of the most talented multi-instrumentalists in pop history. But in death, his influence only grew. Artists from Bruno Mars to Dua Lipa cite the Bee Gees' harmonies as inspiration. His daughter Samantha Gibb carries on his legacy, performing haunting renditions of Stayin' Alive that bring audiences to tears. Each note seems to carry her father's spirit, quiet, steady, and eternal. The unfinished truth and Maurice's enduring echo. More than 20 years have passed since that cold January morning in 2003, yet questions about Maurice Gibb's death refuse to fade. Every few years, new fragments emerge: medical leaks, family remarks, insider testimonies, each adding another shadow to a story already shrouded in grief. When the 2024 Mount Sinai documents surfaced, they confirmed what many long suspected: delays, ignored warnings, and a system that failed one of music's most gifted minds. The hospital has never issued a full statement citing confidentiality agreements. But silence often speaks louder than words. For fans, the unanswered questions became a form of injustice, a reminder that behind the glitter of fame lies a human being who trusted the wrong hands. Even Barry Gibb, now the last surviving brother, has hinted that legal restrictions keep him from revealing everything. His tone in interviews is heavy, his eyes distant. "Maurice was the heart," he once said. "Without him, everything fell apart." That heart still beats, though, in music, in memory, in the unbroken rhythm of the Bee Gees' legacy. "Stayin' Alive," "How Deep Is Your Love," "Tragedy." Songs written decades ago still echo across dance floors and hospital corridors alike, symbols of survival and loss. Each bass line, each harmony carries Maurice's invisible touch, the man who never demanded attention but gave the world its pulse. In 2025, his son Adam Gibb released Father's Eyes, an emotional tribute that captured the essence of a man torn between genius and fragility. Meanwhile, Samantha Gibb continues to perform Bee Gees classics in small, intimate shows, her voice trembling through the same lyrics her father once sang. Together, they have turned their father's pain into purpose. Maurice's story endures not because of his fame, but because of its truth. A cautionary tale about vulnerability, fame, and the human cost of mistakes. Beneath every melody lies the echo of what could have been, a reminder that even legends can fall victim to ordinary errors. The music world may never know every detail of that night in Miami. But one thing remains certain: Maurice Gibb never truly left. His rhythm still guides the world, one heartbeat at a time. Maurice Gibb's death changed the Bee Gees forever, and the story behind it still divides fans to this day. Do you believe the hospital hid the truth, or was it simply a tragic twist of fate? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories behind the legends of music.